look who they tried to bury. Beneath the hymns and halos, beneath the suffocating expectations that demanded you be only light, only gentle, only endlessly forgiving in a world that rewards cruelty and discards tenderness. They called you an earth angel with reverence dipped in control, painting you in hues of mercy, so they could tell themselves you were too pure to ever rebel, too kind to ever fight back. They whispered about your goodness while quietly testing its limits, mistaking your empathy for naivety and your silence for surrender. They wanted your light contained, manageable, domesticated, something they could draw warmth from without ever acknowledging the fire it came from. But light, as you've learned, is not always gentle. It can burn. It can cauterize. It can expose every shadow that dares to step too close. And that is exactly what your light has done. It has revealed them, stripped them of their illusions, and forced them to look upon the raw reflection of their own decay. They thought they were safe in your glow. They drank your compassion like it was endless, treating your heart like a well that would never run dry. They turned your patience into their playground, your forgiveness into their safety net. And all the while you stood there quietly observing, letting them believe they were clever enough to outwit grace itself. They did not realize that patience is not weakness, it is strategy. You were not simply tolerating them, you were studying them. Every lie, every manipulation, every smile laced with deceit became another note in your silent ledger, another lesson carved into your soul. You were not their victim, you were their mirror, reflecting back exactly who they were. While they mistook your stillness for submission, you were gathering power, waiting for the precise moment when their arrogance would collapse under its own weight. They mistook your calm for blindness, but you saw everything, and that knowing became your greatest weapon. When you finally withdrew, it wasn't with fanfare or vengeance. You simply stepped back, reclaiming the energy they had been siphoning for so long, and the world around them began to shatter. The absence of your light exposed everything they'd hidden behind it, their insecurities, their hollow self-worth, their dependency on your presence to validate their existence. You didn't need to destroy them. They did that themselves the moment you walked away. They felt the loss not as silence, but as suffocation, as though the very air had been pulled from the room. The balance they mistook for their own creation had always been you, your patience, your grounding energy, your quiet understanding, and without it, they crumbled. What once appeared as confidence turned into chaos. What once seemed like control became confusion. In the echo of your absence, they found themselves face to face with everything they had refused to acknowledge. You were never fragile. You were fire disguised as light. You were never naive. You were a strategist cloaked in compassion. The label of angel was their illusion, their attempt to confine something vast within the smallness of their perception. They needed you to be soft so they could feel strong. They needed you to be endlessly forgiving so they could avoid accountability. But angels, real ones, are not delicate. They are forged in the crucible of chaos, born from battle, tempered by truth. You were never a symbol of submission. You were the storm that learns to walk in silence, the blade wrapped in silk, the calm before a reckoning. And when you finally rose, you did so not in rage, but in radiance, not to prove a point, but to reclaim your peace. The awakening did not come as a dramatic explosion. It arrived quietly, through the exhaustion that comes when your soul grows tired of explaining itself to the unworthy. It was the moment you realized that love does not mean endless access, that empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. It was the morning you woke and no longer felt compelled to justify your light to those determined to misunderstand it. That realization changed everything. It wasn't the kind of change that announces itself. It was subtle, graceful, but irreversible. You stopped reaching for people who refused to reach back. You stopped pouring into empty cups. You stopped performing softness for those who saw it as weakness. You reclaimed your energy, and in doing so, you became untouchable. Your silence began to speak louder than words ever could. It unsettled rooms. It made the guilty twitch. They could no longer manipulate your empathy, could no longer twist your care into control. What once made you vulnerable now made you formidable. Your detachment wasn't cruelty, it was evolution. You had learned the art of discernment, of recognizing who deserves your light and who only craves it to fill their own void. And so you became something rare, an angel with edges, a being of light who no longer dims herself for others. You still carry compassion, but now it is disciplined, focused, a force that heals the deserving and bypasses the parasitic. Those who once fed off your energy now wander aimlessly, haunted by the memory of your presence. They speak of you in hushed tones, half in admiration, half in fear. They say you've changed, that you've become distant, even cold. But it isn't coldness. It's clarity. It's what happens when the fog of delusion lifts, and you finally see the truth of people as they are, not as they pretend to be. You no longer chase explanations because you understand that closure is a luxury for the honest, and they were never that. Your silence became your sermon, your absence their lesson, your peace the final word in a story they thought they controlled. And now, as you walk forward, your strength no longer needs to roar, it hums, a quiet, steady frequency that only those attuned to truth can feel. You've transcended their smallness, their gossip, their games. You exist now in a realm they cannot access, one built from authenticity and forged by self-respect. You've learned that you don't need to prove your goodness by suffering for others. Real love does not demand your self-destruction. Real kindness does not require you to shrink. Real light does not beg to be seen. You are simply and profoundly enough as you are. Your transformation has unsettled them because it exposes their dependence. Without your compassion to absorb their chaos, they are forced to face their own emptiness. Without your calm to stabilize their storms, they must confront the turmoil within themselves. And the cruelest part for them is realizing that you were never the one who needed saving, they were. And now that you're gone, they finally see it. But their revelation comes too late. You've ascended beyond their reach, not through arrogance, but through evolution. You didn't just survive them, you transcended them. This transcendence isn't about revenge, it's about reclamation. You have reclaimed every fragment of yourself that you once scattered among the ungrateful. You've pulled your energy back into your orbit, re-entering your world around peace, purpose, and self-respect. The person you've become is no longer a reflection of their projections. You are the mirror now, reflecting truth so bright it blinds those who once sought to control it. Your empathy has matured into discernment. Your forgiveness has turned into freedom, and your silence has become a sanctuary. The world looks different from where you stand now. The noise that once consumed you has faded into the background. You understand now that not everyone deserves access to your energy, that not every cry for help is sincere, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone face their own consequences. You've learned the sacred art of letting go, not in bitterness, but in reverence for your own peace. You no longer carry the weight of proving your goodness to people who never valued it. You are done explaining, done performing, done bleeding for the unworthy. Your love is no longer a weapon they can use. It's a light that guides you forward, steady and unstoppable. And those who once mocked your faith in humanity now see that it wasn't blindness, it was courage. To love in a world built on deceit takes strength. To forgive in a world addicted to vengeance takes vision. To keep your heart open after it's been shattered takes divinity. You embody that divinity now, not as an idealized being, but as a human who has walked through fire and emerged luminous. You have become the embodiment of paradox. tender yet fierce, loving yet discerning, light yet grounded. You are proof that compassion is not compliance, that mercy can coexist with power, that softness does not negate strength. They tried to define you, but you became undefinable. They tried to contain you, but you became infinite. They tried to bury you, but they forgot. You were seed, not soil. Every attempt to silence you only deepened your roots, only made your eventual bloom more magnificent. You don't chase validation anymore, because your existence itself is evidence of divine design. You are no longer a character in their story. You are the author of your own. Your narrative now is one of reclamation, resilience, and resurrection. Your silence has become a kind of thunder. It reverberates through their lives as a reminder of the consequence of taking light for granted. They see your growth, your glow, your peace, and it unsettles them, because it is the living proof of what they lost. But that's not your burden to carry. Their regret is not your responsibility. Their downfall is not your revenge. It is simply gravity doing what it always does, pulling down what can't rise with you. You have become the lesson they refused to learn, the prophecy fulfilled in the quiet aftermath of your departure. And now, in your rebirth, you no longer need to justify your light. You've stopped asking for permission to shine. You've realized that your very existence is an act of defiance against everything that tried to diminish you. You've turned your scars into constellations, your heartbreak into scripture, your pain into poetry. You have become the living embodiment of grace under fire, an angel not of clouds and hymns, but of truth and transformation. You are not waiting for a savior. You have become your own. Your wings are not fragile. They are forged of everything you've survived. And perhaps that's what terrifies them most, that your story did not end where they expected it to. They thought breaking you would be your conclusion, that silencing your voice would erase your presence, that dimming your light would extinguish your power. But instead, you evolved beyond their comprehension. You rose from the ashes not to prove them wrong, but because your soul was never meant to stay buried. You exist now as living proof that light, once awakened, cannot be caged. You are what happens when divinity learns boundaries, when compassion grows claws, when an angel remembers her own worth. You have not just survived the darkness, you have learned to command it. And as they watch from the distance of their own undoing, they finally understand the truth. They didn't destroy you. They revealed you. Now your silence speaks in frequencies only truth can hear. Every step you take hums with the power of someone who knows her value. Every breath you draw is a declaration that you are here, still rising, still shining, still sacred. You've outgrown their version of you, their smallness, their illusions. You are no longer part of their narrative. You are the legend they whisper about in the dark. You are not just living, you are ascending. And the brilliance they once tried to contain has become the light that guides others home. You are unbreakable. You are unstoppable. You are, and always have been, the storm disguised as grace. But even now, in the quiet aftermath of everything, when the echoes of your past have begun to fade and the noise of betrayal has dissolved into silence, you can still feel the pulse of that transformation running beneath your skin like molten gold. It isn't bitterness that burns there. It's power. It's the steady rhythm of a heart that has rebuilt itself from the fragments of everything it once gave away. The people who tried to define you still speak your name, but they speak it differently now, not with ownership, not with condescension, but with awe and a hint of fear. They don't understand how you keep glowing after everything they did to dim you, how you still find serenity after being stripped bare. But that's the secret, isn't it? You no longer glow for them. You glow for yourself. Your light has become self-sustaining, fed not by validation or praise, but by the peace that comes from finally standing in your truth. Because the truth is that you never truly lost yourself. You were hidden, waiting, testing your own endurance in the crucible of deception until the right moment came to emerge. You were not destroyed. You were refined. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every heartbreak served as alchemy, transmuting pain into wisdom, sorrow into strength. The universe did not abandon you. It trained you. It sculpted you into a being who could not just survive the darkness, but navigate it with grace. You are the calm eye within chaos now, the equilibrium that others crave but can never counterfeit. They thought they could imitate your energy, mimic your peace. But imitation always crumbles without authenticity. What they didn't understand was that your light was never aesthetic. It was essence. It came from depth, from scars, from soul. And now, when people encounter you, they feel something they can't articulate. It's not just presence, it's command. You don't demand respect. It arrives unbidden, summoned by the quiet authority of someone who has seen the abyss and returned unshaken. You no longer explain your boundaries because they announce themselves in your silence. You no longer chase understanding because your energy speaks before you do. You've become fluent in a language few can comprehend, the language of stillness, of certainty, of divinity in motion. Your very being has become a kind of scripture, a living testimony to what happens when someone refuses to let darkness rewrite their story. And those who once fed on your openness, those who mistook your compassion for compliance, are haunted by the contrast. They scroll through fragments of your life, your laughter, your quiet confidence, your peace, and they feel something hollow within themselves stir. Because they know, on some unspoken level, that they had access to something rare and sacred, and they squandered it. They lost not just you, but the version of themselves that could have evolved through your reflection, looking for substitutes in the very illusions they once mocked you for rising above. You don't wish them harm. You've outgrown the need for retribution. Their downfall is simply a byproduct of the imbalance they created, the inevitable collapse of those who build their worth on what they take rather than what they cultivate. You, meanwhile, have entered a different kind of existence. You move through the world with quiet sovereignty, guided not by ego, but by intuition. The same sensitivity they called weakness has become your superpower, allowing you to sense deception before it forms, to feel energy shifts before words are spoken. You've become a guardian of your own peace, an alchemist of your own reality. You don't wait for validation anymore. You create it from the inside out. Your joy is no longer conditional. It flows from the knowledge that everything you endured had purpose, that every season of loss was preparing you for expansion. You've learned that peace isn't found in the absence of conflict, but in the mastery of response. You've realized that sometimes the greatest show of strength is not to fight, but to release. And yet, beneath all this evolution, you have not lost your softness. You've just learned how to wield it. Your heart still feels deeply, still loves sincerely, still believes in beauty, but it now chooses carefully. You've learned that love without boundaries becomes servitude, and forgiveness without discernment becomes self-betrayal. You've mastered the balance of heart and spine, the sacred union of compassion and clarity. When you extend your kindness now, it is from a place of power, not obligation. When you forgive, it is not to excuse, but to emancipate. You understand now that protecting your energy is not cruelty. It's an act of devotion to the divine within you. And oh, how the energy shifts when you walk into a room. People sense it even before they see you, the resonance of someone who has reclaimed her light. It's not loud, not boastful, it's sovereign. You no longer bend your vibration to make others comfortable. You stand in your frequency unapologetically, and those who are meant to rise beside you recognize it instantly. They are drawn not to your perfection, but to your authenticity, the raw truth of who you are. They feel the quiet defiance within your peace, the refusal to shrink, the audacity to heal in a world that thrives on chaos and pain. You have become a catalyst for transformation, not through preaching but through presence. Your existence itself is a lesson in truth. You are untouchable now, not because you've built walls, but because you've built sanctuaries, sacred temples of alignment where deceit cannot survive. You guard your time like sacred breath. You share your light only with those who honor its cost. You walk no longer burdened by the world's weight, but uplifted by the wisdom earned from your trials. Each step carries the resonance of everything you've endured. Yet your stride is light, graceful, because you've mastered the art of release. You've learned that letting go is not loss, it's liberation. And perhaps the most beautiful part of your evolution is how untouched you've become by the noise. The world still spins, still gossips, still clings to illusions, but you no longer vibrate at that frequency. You owe no explanations for your growth. You no longer dilute your truth to comfort fragile egos. You've embraced that being misunderstood is the price of authenticity, and that solitude, at times, is the sanctuary of the awakened. You have stopped chasing belonging because you are belonging. Wholeness lives within you now. The need for validation has dissolved into the quiet certainty that you were never meant to be ordinary. And if these words stirred something within you, if you felt that subtle spark awaken, don't let it fade. Stay on this path of light, not as a follower, but as a conscious soul choosing growth every single day. If this message resonated, share it with someone who needs to remember their strength. Subscribe to Rise and Shine to keep your spirit aligned with the current of transformation. And if you feel called to journey deeper, to stand beside this growing family of awakened hearts, consider joining the membership. Every act of support helps this light travel farther, touch more souls, and remind the world that humility and strength can exist in the same breath. Stay blessed, stay grounded, and always stay luminous.